Okay, here we are with the heavy metal episode. I'm very happy we were able to arrive at this moment. Heavy metal is not the most beloved film of all time, although it has its cult enthusiasts. Now, I was always under the impression that the reception at the time of its release was very mixed, and that fans of genre pulp and adult animation seemingly felt as though the film was either rushed, cynical, brainless, or all of those. However, strangely enough, the film was reviewed positively overall by the likes of Janet Maslin, Gene Siskel, and Leonard Maltin, surely amongst those who the creators expected to turn their noses up at it. Maybe a fan of this film is editing the Wikipedia page and selectively including positive contemporary reviews, I don't know. What I do know is that fans of adult-oriented comics seem to have mixed feelings about the heavy metal film, including those who read and loved the magazine of the same name, which it is based upon, which apparently is still published in the United States today. Good on them, honestly. Arguably, both the illustrative qualities and the imaginative writing strengths of the heavy metal magazine, at least as its fans deemed it, are not sufficiently captured within the 1981 heavy metal feature. It is mostly a demonstration of animation inspired by the artwork of the comics mag, a purely visual treat, although fans of adult-oriented animation are even more so, not having it with this ruthlessly adolescent, sexually frustrated dream. Those who enjoy the works of, say, Rene Laloux or Marcel Jankovic, or certainly those who are invested into their anime, and there's plenty of you, they'll have no time for heavy metal 1981, very generally speaking. Oh, speaking of adult animation, I'm just going to say this off of the fly. I didn't write this in my text. Gerald Potterton, the credited director on this film, he's known for being an animator on the Beatles' Yellow Submarine feature. Just wanted to throw that out there. Fans of adult animation, including Yellow Submarine, they probably don't have time for for heavy metal either. Anyway. Oh, even those who enjoy Ralph Bakshi might be off-put by heavy metal. I also happen to be a huge fan of, and really even more a fan of actually, Bakshi's Wizards, but let's not even go there. So why do I appreciate heavy metal? In this particular instance, I'm less interested in what heavy metal isn't. Seamlessly animated, densely written, artistically vanguard, or sexually prudish. I really do enjoy, even vaguely love, that some impassioned testament exists to the kind of creative and visually exciting genre pulp imagination which fueled the titular magazine, and I utterly can admire every little facet of this film's mixed accomplishments. Well, not every facet, perhaps. It features characteristically heavy metal imagery. It has a lot of fun with it. It tells its stories almost entirely visually. The frames tend to want to capture one's eye with some exciting, noticeable detail to distract one from the lack of textual substance. The earnest embrace of the burgeoning heavy metal scene of the 1980s, not that Stevie Nicks or Don Felder belonged to it, then neither did Devo, and I adore Devo, and am elated at their presence in this picture. Yeah, the earnest embrace of the burgeoning heavy metal scene of the 1980s within this film, it's really exciting, and I like the optimism and the passion, the enthusiasm about it. And hey, the film features a bit of Fire of Unknown Origin from Blue Oyster Cult, the song Veteran of the Psychic Wars, a plausible masterpiece, utilised exceptionally well near this film's opening. Just spectacular. And of course, some Dio-era Black Sabbath. You cannot go wrong with Dio-era Black Sabbath, and it is indicative of a cultural world whose imagery is consistent, dynamic, and proud. That of heavy metal. Whatever the heavy metal music phenomenon, and I mean heavy metal specifically, the historical phenomenon, which even revered music metal critic Martin Popoff deems distinct from metal itself as it would subsequently develop throughout the 80s. Whatever the heavy metal music phenomenon entails, and heavy metal being a more old school thing than the more, I don't know what you'd say, thrash onward, when it's just metal intense, as opposed to the slow heavy metal. There is a distinction, I feel. I'm not the only one. I vaguely got this idea from others, as well, like, oh yeah, I've noticed that too, sort of thing. Fantastical genre pulp, sword and sorcery imagery, masculine bravado, and a do what you feel, don't give a fuck, God can only stop me sort of attitude. The visual art associated and which inspired or supplemented, enriched something which can be called a heavy metal culture or subculture is something I still have a very soft spot for. I do enjoy old school heavy metal music, really typified by Dio-era Sabbath on their 1980 masterpiece Heaven and Hell, and find myself a bit alienated by the more extreme movements, mostly, which would succeed groups such as Black Sabbath, Iron Maiden, Witchfind, or Venom. Although I love some of the immediate successor bands, which were immediately ripped off en masse, Celtic Frost, Slayer, or Sodom, Death. But generally speaking, the whole extreme metal thing, I can admire it somewhat. I can appreciate it for what it is in a respect, but I don't listen to it. So there is that. I love the bands that slowed it down again, Sleep, Electric Wizard, or Sunno, if you want to count that. Though it depends if you like and prefer drinking or seshing. And yes, I have a fondness for genre imagery in general. Obviously, it helps me get into certain rock-inspired genres and subgenres in the first place, and really always will. I just love the fact that heavy metal exists and is what it is. It is not overwhelmingly impressive, it is not necessarily poignant, and it fully embraces the male gaze, plus all of its nudity. There is much sexually oriented humour, none of it tasteful, for better or worse. But I still enjoy it, quite a lot. Enjoy the rest of these screen caps. Have a glorious day.